Hello again. Welcome to another episode of RPM Flows with Dr. G. Before we begin, let's do our greeting. I honor and salute the divinity in you. Thank you for joining me again today on another episode where we're going to cover interpersonal resilience, specifically assertiveness in interpersonal communication. So this is an important element of everyday life, and this is something that I try to work on and refine and sharpen daily in terms of how I convey and communicate messages to others, and I try to teach that as well to others. So today I'm going to give you some tools to help you begin that journey of becoming more assertive or refining how assertive you are in your everyday communication. How do we define assertiveness in interpersonal communication? It's a skill that helps us find balance between passive silence and aggression. Assertiveness allows us to honor our own needs while still respecting the dignity and needs of others. And you may know people in your life that tend to be more passive in how they approach communication or confrontation. Then some are passive aggressive and some are aggressive. But assertiveness is a skill that we can all use to find that compromise or area of balance in communication where you respect yourself as you respect whoever you're speaking to. So let's look at some definitions of assertiveness and from different authors that I've done research on. First one is Randy Patterson, and I'm actually taking a pretty deep dive into one of his works. As you see here, the Assertiveness Workbook by Randy Patterson. I have a notebook that I keep because I think it helps to just make notes of all the different elements and themes that he integrates and weaves into the book to help me to soak it in like a sponge. Oh, and then before I get too far into this, let's say hello to Coda. She is taking a nap, I think right now, but she's also with us in spirit for sure, even though she's chilling, relaxing right now. Anyway, so back to Randy Patterson. He defines assertiveness as the ability to express your thoughts, feelings, and needs directly, open, and honestly, while respecting the rights of others. It's not about pushing others aside, right? Or shrinking back and not considering your own needs and wants. It's about honesty and balance. Now, M. Scott Peck, in Further on the Road Less Traveled, reminds us that growth requires truth-telling and discipline and love. And assertiveness is one of the most loving choices we can make because it is rooted in honesty. Then Albert Ellis, founder of Rational and Emotive Behavior Therapy, or REBT for short, often pointed to unhealthy beliefs like, I must always please others, as blocks to assertive living. And Manuel J. Smith, in When I Say No, I Feel Guilty. Now, do any of you have a hard time saying no? I know I used to, and I would say yes to everyone and everything and put my own needs and my desires and wants down the totem pole and put everyone else in front of me. So saying no was hard, and that's one of the skills that I think we all need to practice saying no. But he gave us a tool called the Personal Bill of Rights I have developed to my own, and I may share some of mine with you today, along with some other more generic objectives or elements of a Personal Bill of Rights. And I hope that one of the outcomes of you listening to me today is creating your own Bill of Rights, your own personal Bill of Rights, which helps to honor and assert your importance and significance and validate your existence as a human being on this earth. And that personal Bill of Rights is that a declaration that reminds us we have the right to say no, that no is a complete sentence, the right to change our minds, the right to express our feelings without needing to justify ourselves. So now let's transition into some techniques along with the Bill of Rights. Another technique that I use that helps to organize my thoughts in a way that may help you to organize your thoughts when you are reflecting on how to address something in an assertive fashion. And it's called the DEAR approach. And it's an acronym, DEAR. So the D is for describing the situation from a cognitive or perceptual place first. So my belief is, or my perception is X, Y, and Z. And because of that perception, E, I express my emotion about it. So because I have this belief, this makes me feel this way. Then A is to assert your goal or preference. So my goal or my preference instead is to do this, or my goal moving forward is to identify X, Y, and Z. Okay. And then R is to reaffirm with compliments, kindness, gratitude. So then you finish it in a way that's kind, and you let the audience member, whoever you're speaking to, you let them know, thank you so much for hearing me out, or I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me. Those are nice ways to close out a DEAR statement. So here's an example, and this might help you to put it together a little bit. I'm going to read it here. So, Dad, when you dismiss my perspective in conversation, so that's describing the situation, I feel ignored and undervalued. So that's expressing my emotion about it. I'd like you to hear me out before responding to anything and without interrupting me. So that's asserting your goal moving forward. And in this way, we can better understand each other and avoid unnecessary tension. Thank you for listening to me. And that's the R, to reaffirm kindness or gratitude for whoever's listening to you, that they took the time to listen. This structure helps you keep language clear, respectful, and anchored in self-respect and mutual respect. So again, it's reflecting on what your belief and what your perception is. So in this case, my perception is that, Dad, when we talk, you dismiss my perspective in conversations many times. And this E makes me feel undervalued or ignored, diminished. A, assert my goal or preference. I would prefer that when we engage in conversation, that you allow me to finish what I have to say before chiming in whatever you would like to respond with. This way we can better understand each other and avoid unnecessary tension or frustration. And I appreciate you listening to me and hearing me out. So that's DEAR, DEAR. And feel free to reach out to me, send me an email, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put those in there in the comment section, and I can help try to give you some additional guidance on the kind of DEAR statement that would be helpful for you to make for maybe a situation that is challenging or tricky to address. The other thing I will say about DEAR statements is that it's probably easier to start with elements that are not as tricky or potentially charged emotionally. So DEAR statements can also be used for positive reinforcement or empowering themes. For example, it may be like, I learned my daughter scored 2 goals in soccer workouts yesterday. So I might say something to her. Wow, my belief, Zoe, is that you are making a lot of improvement in your soccer ability, and this makes me feel proud and excited for your future. And my goal is to continue to support you, and if there's anything you need from me to continue to flourish in soccer, I'm here for you. And thank you for understanding. Thank you for listening to me, daughter. Something like that. So that's not necessarily a negative or charged theme. It has more of a empowering and positive tone to it. And you may want to start with those first, because those are probably easier to construct. And then as you get better and you master that skill, then you can tackle more of the more challenging elements or themes in your life. Now, I had mentioned the Personal Bill of Rights, so I want to give you some examples of that. But remember, this is to strengthen your assertiveness, and you can Google Personal Bill of Rights and probably find a plethora of examples out there. So there's lots to draw from. You don't have to start from scratch, but you may modify some that you do read or hear, even as I say some today. So here I'm going to read 5 or 6 of these, and then I'll tell you my own, because I have mine saved in my daily calendar, and that's just helpful for me to remind myself every day, what are my personal bill of rights and how do I begin to live those every day. So, for example, I have the right to express my feelings, my thoughts, and opinions. I have the right to say no without guilt, and that no is a complete sentence. I have the right to make mistakes and not be perfect. I have the right to change my mind. I have the right to peace of mind. I am a soul with all rights. And then some of my own are, I do not need to apologize for my existence. I have the right to communication without escalation. I have the right to protect my energy. And I have the right to be myself and not be ashamed of that. And really all of this is to eliminate fear of disapproval and diminishment, and empower myself in authentic self-acceptance and bask in daily equanimity. So hopefully these are these starter tools to get you going on your path towards being more assertive. Now, the Find Your Flow moment for this episode is a little bit heavy. It comes with some heaviness. It does come from my life. Back in 2016, I was assertive in deciding to write my father a letter with things left unsaid. It was an act of assertiveness rooted in honesty. In that letter, I expressed things I had left unsaid and things that needed to be voiced just for my own healing, and to put all this baggage and I think internal angst that I've been holding in, I put it on him for him to try to manage and reflect on. And after I read it to him, our relationship went silent. It went cold. We didn't speak for 6 years. But in 2022, something changed, and slowly we began to rebuild the trust that had been compromised. He had reached out to me, I believe via Facebook, and wanted to talk and just start to slowly have a conversation. And over the last 3 years, our relationship had been on the mend, and we were taking those small steps toward trust again. However, unexpectedly and unfortunately, he did pass last month in August, and there was a deep sadness and heaviness that came with his passing. However, there was also deep relief that I had done this exercise. So I think I carried the grief, but I also carried gratitude. Gratitude for the courage it took to be assertive back then, and the gratitude for the grace of reconciliation in our final years together, or in our reconnecting phase. So for you, the listener, I invite this practice. Write a letter to someone whom you care about, whom you love, and write down things left unsaid, things that have not been spoken. Whether you share it or keep it to yourself, the process can bring clarity, empowerment, and healing, as it has for me. So in closing, assertiveness is the bridge between passive silence and aggression. It is the practice of honesty with respect. Patterson gives us practical strategies. Peck shows us that truth is love in action. Ellis reminds us to let go of irrational guilt. And Smith empowers us with that personal Bill of Rights. The Dear approach helps us practice assertive statements. And my own journey with my father reminds me that assertiveness can bring both rupture and reconciliation, sometimes separated by years, yet still meaningful and healing in the end. When we practice assertiveness, we're living out RPM flows. We build resilience by speaking truth, find purpose in honoring our needs, creating meaning through authentic connection, and fostering love and oneness in our relationships. We discover wonderment in the courage it takes to be real, and we notice synchronicity when truth-telling leads us to healing in unexpected ways. So thank you for joining me on this episode of RPM Flows with Dr. G. Till next time, remember, your voice matters, your needs are valid, and assertiveness is a pathway to deeper human connection. So in closing, I honor and salute the divinity in you, and remember, let your life's flow be purposeful and free on RPM Flows with Dr. G. Adios, and practice your assertiveness skills. Take care. Until next time.